At what point do you get sick of it? Like, even though you love it and it's something you did that was so great, at what point do you like, all right, like I want to talk about other stuff?
I got diarrhea.
I love talking about diarrhea. I can talk about that all day.
Yeah, I was doing like a charity event one time with Max Casella, who was on Doogie Howser and he was on Sopranos, and like somebody came up to him and was like, "Oh man, I love Doogie Howser," and the guy's wife was like, "Hey, come on, like he doesn't want to hear that," and the guy was like, "That's why I have a home." Like, he's like, "Just go ahead." Like and that like kind of switched something for me where I was like, "Yeah, that's the reason why like I have, you know, like I'm not 40 and living with my mom potentially, like, you know what I mean?" It's so yeah, I never get sick of. Not that I don't get sick of talking about it, but I never am like bothered to talk about it.
Yeah. And, you know, a lot of our podcasts, not a lot of it, but there's always a segment that, you know, just pokes fun at the fact of how little we actually know about Sopranos.
Yeah, I've never watched it, like, and she's never seen all of it. She's seen like half, right?
So they'll quiz us with fairly simple questions that we usually get wrong.
And people get so mad that we don't know. Like, like, really mad. And like, how could you not know the name of the boat? Like, I didn't watch the show. Like, I don't know, you know? They're like, you were on the boat. I don't know. Like,
I didn't read the side of it. What do you want me to tell you?
So your memories of that show are so obviously so different because you were on it, but like you like when you think of the show, you're thinking of the camera looking at you and craft services and all the stuff that was like kind of wrapped around it, as opposed to seeing it as a finished work. So yeah, I kind of get why you wouldn't know all the ins and outs of it, because why would you want to watch yourself? It's just uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember most things that people ask me about the show, which is also great. Like, when people want to talk to me about the show, it's a great thing to be like, I don't know. You know, like I can't. When
and you
like,
genuinely don't know.
Yeah,
right.
And, you know, when they're like,
we're not brushing him off. We just cannot have a conversation about it.
Like episode 70, when he said this, what did he mean? I'm like, I don't even know. I could just say like, I don't know, instead of having like Michael Imperioli wrote for the show everything, so he has to sit there and actually talk to people about like, what did this character mean by this and this? Where I'm like, dude, this is on you. Like, I don't know shit.
What was Tony Sirico like?
Oh my God! You know exactly what he was like.
Yes.
You saw it.
He was that guy, right?
Oh my God!
Yes, the best. He
the
smelled
best.
like the strongest cologne you can ever. You smelled like him for days after you saw him. He was the best.
The type of guy who shook your hand and your hand would smell like cologne.
Or you know, every once in a while, like I would always make sure that if I was wearing a ring, it was the right way, because he would squeeze your hand so tight. Like every once in a while, you know, it just get you.
So he had, whenever we'd be on like the red carpets for shit, he would reach into his suit pocket and pull out. He had a mini bottle of Obsession, and he would pour it in his hand, and he would put it on your face, on your neck, and he'd be like, here. They love it. That's what they love it. Here. Oh my! So you'd get in a car with him, and just the whole car would just smell like Obsession.
That's such a pleasant smell too. That was in high school. My favorite cologne was Obsession by Calvin Klein. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of like memories that come flooding back when you get that scent.
Yeah, it's one thing to be like welcoming. It's another thing to actually cologne people.
That's right.
No, put this on.
Yeah.
It's an aggressive move.
It is aggressive.
That only he could get away with.
Right. Yeah, because he's doing it for you.
That's right.
You know,
we
would like, so they had like the Emmys and shit. You sit like you're in a fucking auditorium, like you're at school. You know what I mean? But then they had the SAG Awards where you sit at like a dinner table. You're eating. There's food. There's wine. And I remember at like the first one we ever went to, he lit a cigarette at the fucking SAG Awards. Yeah, he lit a cigarette, and like security came over and was like, "What are you doing?" He wasn't putting it out either. Like he was like, "What are you?" He's like, "Yeah, I'll hold it down." Like was holding it under the table. It was you're sitting next to like Richard Dreyfuss, you know what I mean? People were looking at you like, this guy's fucking smoking, but he did time. Like
I know,
he was
the real deal.
Right.
Yeah.
I do love people that smoke in public in inappropriate places, just because it's become such a social faux pas. But when we had Andrew Dice Clay in here, he's the only person that's come into the radio studio and just started chain smoking. And we were like, you can't. And he was like, get me an ashtray. All right.
That was 2015. No one smokes indoors anymore. They have it for 15 years.
Right.
All the other shows started complaining because
it's going through the vents.
Yeah, the ducks go to all the other studios. They're like, why does it smell like cigarette smoke in here? But like, if you want to tell them to stop,
nobody
go
volunteered.
ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very old school attitude. Like Dice used to smoke in the airports.
Power move.
It's
It
a
is
power move.
It is.
Yeah.
He would go
Because
to
you
the-
know you're not supposed to.
He would smoke in an
100%.
airport, and if they said something, he would say, "Oh, we got permission from the mayor." He would say it, and people would just
I'm
believe
going to
it.
use that. I
We
like
got
that
permission
one.
from the mayor.
Yeah.
There's also something about deep down just wanting to get kicked out of places. You know what I
Right.
mean? Of being like, oh,
Uh-huh.
you're gonna kick me out? Great.
Great.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's fucking 6 a.m. Kick me out.
Kick me out.
You know?
Yeah.
Were you guys ever afraid you weren't going to get picked up, like in between seasons 1 and 2, maybe, or did you know immediately this is here for as long as we
No.
want it?
Yeah, it was always kind of that vibe. It was more of like, how much longer does David want to do this? To the point where he had a meeting with all of us where we thought we were filming the last season and brought us all in and said, I'm going to do 8 more, which is when there was like the 6
Oh, yes. Yeah.
or whatever. We were in the middle of filming 6A and thought that was going to be it. And he called us in and said, would you guys want to do more? And I think, Rob, you were the one that was like, you had me at hello, like, no problem. I don't
'Cause
think
he-
any of us are going to say no.
He came in like it was like a real serious thing, and he's like, "Listen, I've been thinking about it. You know, would you want to do?" And I was like, "Dude, you had like the second you walked in the,
Yeah,
we're all here.
yeah.
Like, let's
What?
fucking."
Can you
know."
imagine if someone's like, I'm ready
Yeah,
to move on.
like if one person was like, it's been fun, but
Yeah.
Dave, I think it's time. I think you're done.
I do wish there was one person who hadn't done the last 8 episodes because they thought it had run its course.
Yeah,
Right.
or they were
Like,
doing a
yeah.
play somewhere.
Yeah. They had another show that got canceled after a season or something.
Tony
That's right.
Sirico used to go up to writers and be like, "Yeah, there's only one rule around here. Like, I don't go." You know? Like, and he would really like their first day. He would grab him and be like, I don't know if David told you yet, but there's no part of the script where it's even a question
Yeah.
of am I coming back? Like,
And didn't they say he wouldn't let them write him in as a snitch? That's one thing he wouldn't do is somebody who had turned. He said that he wouldn't let them write him in.
I don't know that, but that sounds like something that could have happened.
And there was
for sure.
one scene where they had to mess up his hair, and it was like the biggest
Yeah.
deal. Like
He was unhappy about it.
You could not touch because there's like hair people, and sometimes
Sure.
when they're new, they didn't know that you're not supposed to touch his hair, and they would come over to and he would.
He
freak-
did his own hair.
and he was the biggest sweetheart ever.
Yes.
But he would just if somebody touched his hair, it was like
He hated it.
his masterpiece. You know.
It was probably Pine Barrens. Remember that? Remember
Yes.
his hair was like all over the place on
Exactly.
the sides?
Exactly.
And you guys, I know you get asked about the last episode all the time, so I only want to ask you, when you got the script, did the script read exactly as we saw it, or was there anything different, or was it ambiguous the way it was in the script?
Yeah,
They-
but
they or they shoot it differently than the
made
script.
It made it seem like, well, I wasn't there the day that they were shooting the inside of whole scenes. It was a whole separate day that they shot all the stuff with me in the parallel parking. But I don't remember it saying like cut to black or, I think it was more of just like a fade or how you would normally end a scene. That's how I thought it was going to be, because when we watched it at a screening, I remember I was sitting next to Dominic Chianese, and we both turned around like, what happened? We thought the projector went out, like everybody else thought their cable went out.
Yeah.
Right, so I was wondering if they had like not a false ending, but did they reverse? Did you guys get full scripts or only your parts?
We got
By
full
the
scripts,
end-
but they also put out different scripts just in case someone found.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of times it's like, oh, you would leave your
Sure.
script in a jacket, and then the wardrobe would sell that jacket for like $10 to Goodwill, and somebody would grab it and be like, holy shit, this is the last scene of the fucking
Yeah, and
Sopranos.
the
or whatever.
sides, I think by the end, like the sides were always collected, and then scripts were watermarked. I feel
Numbered
like
with your
the last
number.
season we only got the pages we were in. It was getting more lockdown by the end.
I was
for sure.
partying so hard then, man. I don't know. Like I remember. Yeah, it was a crazy.
You always brought it to work, though. You never.
Oh, I
you
never-
never brought that side of your life.
But I remember there
sport.
was a time where one time David also like took us into a meeting, and he was like, I want to take a year off. Like, do you remember? And he was like, I
Yeah.
just want to take a year to do that. And like everybody was like, okay, cool. And then when he kind of got up and left, and everyone was like, oh my God, like Edie was like, what am I going to do? Should I do a play? And Lorraine was like, what am I going to work on this? And I was like, you guys are fucking nuts. Like, you're thinking about what you're going to work on? We got a year off and we know we're coming back?
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I'm fucking, let's go over to the bar. Like, I'm like, I want to hang out with my friend, I probably because psychologically I missed all that shit, I started in the business when I was 6 years old.
Right.
So it's
Right.
like all I wanted to do was hang out with my friends, you know?
And
Yeah,
you
so you already have money. You got guaranteed more money coming in.
That's right.
So you just got a year to hang out.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Plus they'll let you in anywhere.
Yeah. Everybody else heard, so what are you guys going to work on for the next year? Which is like, just crazy.
Absolutely nothing. Me and you, Dave, we're taking a year off.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Would you ever get fucked up at work? Like, would you ever like whatever you would do in the trailer?
So I had one of my buddies was we became such good friends with like everybody who worked on the crew and everything. And one of my buddies, who was a PA, had a bottle of Jaeger in the hair makeup trailer, and it was like the second we would wrap, it was just like bank, bank, bank. But the only time it really interfered with work was on my 21st birthday when I went to Vegas and I came back with no voice. And they were like, yeah, like I showed up to work and I was like, and they're like, yeah, we have to film. We have to like reschedule this day. And then another time we were filming was that Long Island? When I got fucking trashed.
Oh, the wedding? Well,
Yeah.
we filmed a wedding scene. It was, whose wedding was it?
I think it was like Vince Curatoso, Johnny Sachs'
Sachs'
daughter.
daughter's
yeah,
wedding.
when he was out on
maybe?
parole.
Yeah.
That
or
was like
whatever.
a 5-day thing on
It
on
was
Long
crazy
Island.
because there
It
were
was-
hundreds of people.
And it was like, I mean, and so when you film scenes like that, it's all these little vignettes. So you're waiting around 8 hours doing nothing.
Yeah.
So
these people come over to us and they're like, hey, we have a bar up the block. When you guys are wrapped, we'll close it down.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, I don't have any lines. I'm not in the scene. I'm like, yeah, we'll all go. And everybody went to the
Yeah.
bar after. It was just us. And I got behind the bar and I started making shots and every shot that I made for people, I would take a shot. And then like, I just got fucking wasted. And I remember, at like 9 a.m., Jeff Marchetti coming into my hotel room and he's like, dude, we're waiting for you on set. But he's like, no one knows that you're not there. So Michael Imperioli was staying in the room next to me.
Mhm.
And he's like, and I'm like, I see him on set and I'm like, dude, you don't wake me up to leave with you. I'm like, you just leave without me. He goes, I tried to wake you up. And he goes, you looked up in the bed with your eyes closed and you pointed like you were clicking the mute button on a remote at me. and he's like, and you wouldn't get up. You just went back to sleep. And I was like, oh, my bad. Like, I was like, that's not cool. But luckily, like, they were filming so much stuff that no one knew I wasn't there.
Yeah.
You know?
So you
because-
got away with one, yeah.
Yeah, but otherwise, I never even came close. Like, if I knew I had to work on like a Thursday, I wouldn't go out to drink on a Saturday because I was like, I know I could drink for 3 days and it could lead into fucking me even being a little hungry because like I was fully aware that I was working on a show where everyone was better actors than me. Like we were working with the best actors in the world, so I was like, I can't be the worst actor and then show up fucked up. Like, you know, if you're the best actor, you could show up fucked up. But if you're the last guy on the list, you got to be.
Yeah, at least
you
I'm
know.
sober.
Yeah. I, mean, I know my lines, dude. Like,
Yeah.
you know, that was what, you know,
Was
I
that
thought I could bring.
Was that moment like a specific moment where you're like, oh, okay, I can't even tempt fate on this. Like, I can't get caught not being at a scene. Like, I got one free.
No, because that was later in the show, you know.
Yeah.
I knew, you know, I started partying when I was like 12, 13. So I knew
Oh,
right in the
wow.
beginning. Like, yeah, I was like, yo, I can't ever let this interfere with this. Like, because this is, you know, I grew up in income housing, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
my family was like, yo, this is the ticket. Like, you're getting out. Like, you know, and I was like, okay, I knew, you know, I couldn't let it get in the way. And also I was like, I get to go to all these dope parties because I'm on the show.
Right.
So if the show goes away, the dope parties go away.
I can still come to the party, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
it was, you know.
And you don't want to be written off. Like, you know what I mean? You don't want to be or have less because they're like, he's not reliable, so we'll have him kind of in the background when you could actually be doing something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also just respect. I mean, I
Yeah.
think it
Yeah.
was never lost on us ever what we were a part of. And everybody worked really hard. As fun as it was, as great of a time as it was, like that, the reason why it was so successful is people worked so hard on that show and
Yeah.
for that show. I mean, actors, crew, everyone.
Was there anybody you never had a scene with that you wanted to?
Lorraine, like nobody had a
Yeah,
scene with her really
never
except
Lorraine.
for Jim.
Yep.
So we
Right.
would, it was like we were on a show with her for 10 years and never worked. It was a very weird thing where it was like, we have this family and she's a member of the family, but nobody ever sees her
Yeah.
in that. It was weird.
Yeah.
We always wanted
and
to
we were
work with her.
close with her because
Yeah,
we
she was
would, you know,
great.
she's so great and so fun and loving and especially to Rob and I, because she had kids our age. So yeah, Lorraine was one. And then when we would have like really cool guest stars, like Jon Favreau, like I was like, you know, he came to the table read, but I was like, oh man, it would be so cool to be in a scene with him.
Yeah. How long does it take your eyebrows to grow back in after they shave them?
So they actually did. They got the makeup guy from Dick Tracy,
Whoa!
who like apparently was like an Oscar-winning because. Like, obviously, I didn't want to shave my eyebrows, but they were also worried of, like, well, how does it grow back the next episode? Like, because we have to film the next episode in 7 days. And
Right.
my eyebrows are going to be back. And so how are they going to do that in this? So I'd show up to work at, if we had to start filming at 7 a.m., I would show up at 5 a.m. So I'd wake up at, 3:30 a.m. I would get there, fall asleep in the chair, and I'd wake up with no eyebrows. So it's like and you wake up in the hair makeup trailer where it's all mirrors, and it was like the second you'd wake up and you don't know where you are for a second, then you have no eyebrows. I remember like multiple days waking up, I was like, this is fucking bizarre.
Yeah, it looks weird, right?
Yeah.
How long do they take to grow back?
I don't know, but I'm sure that
A while.
Yeah, if you're filming another scene in 7 days and it's supposed to be like time has passed,
Yeah.
it's not gonna.
And also sometimes you would have to film the scene with no eyebrows, then 2 days later film the scene from earlier that episode.
Oh,
Right.
So
yeah,
they're
of course.
like,
They're not shooting in
how
order,
are you
yeah.
gonna? There's just no. But I've heard
Movie magic.
Yeah.
what they were saying was everyone's different. They were like, some people your eyebrows grow back like it's nothing. They're like, some people they just don't grow back. Like some people it takes forever. Oh yeah, what do we got?
3 to 4 months.
3
it's
to
saying.
4 months.
That's a long time to have no eyebrows.
Yeah, that would have been a tremendous hit to
Yeah.
the show if you
That's
had to
right.
wait.
Yeah, can you imagine if they didn't grow back and like you have to do the final
That's
scene?
like hard to watch someone for that long with
If
no
I'm sitting
eyebrows.
here
You know what I
right
mean?
now
It's
still with
You
just
still
no
have no
fucking
eyebrows. You're
eyebrows.
like, yeah, I know. It's stupid.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and I always knew like I'm not an actor. You know what I mean? Like I knew it wasn't fit. Like when I did Sopranos, I was like, I love this, and so I thought I loved acting. And then when I tried to do acting after it, I was like, oh, this isn't that. Like this, and that's
Yeah.
what everybody on Sopranos said. Like they had been acting for 10, 20, 30 years, so they were like, you don't know how lucky you are. And I was 12. I was like, oh, everyone doesn't get on a hit show, like
Yeah.
right away, So I really didn't know. And then afterwards, you go and you do stuff, and like people stay in their campers, and then they show up and they do their lines and they go back. And this is where we were like, we were waiting for them to yell cut so we could like all sit at the bar together and talk and laugh and do stupid shit. And it was just, we couldn't wait. Like nobody wanted to go to the Emmys, but everybody wanted to hang out. And it was like, oh, who's on my flight? And you'd get so excited by like, who's on my flight? Because I don't get to do scenes with this person, but now we're going to be on the same flight for 6 hours.
Yeah.
Right.
Why do you think that was? Like, what was it about that show? Because you hear like nightmare stories about other shows where like co-stars don't get along, nobody wants to be there.
So it was the fact that we were in New York. It was the fact that nobody was very famous when we started, and legit that if you were an asshole, David Chase could write you off.
And he would.
Like he could kill you. Like you always knew that in your head. Like I could look at the last page tomorrow and I could die. Like it's not like I'm on ER or something where it's like, hey, where did the kid go? Like
And
I could die.
No competition. There was no ego. I remember there was one guest star one time, and it literally like sent a ripple through the entire Sopranos like Silver Cup universe, because it was like, oh, there's like a diva on the set right now. Like it set everybody off so badly because we had not experienced that the entire time.
Were
It
they
was
only
just
on one episode, or was it a few episodes? You
one
don't have to say who it
episode.
was, but okay.
One episode.
And also
But I
it
just
starts
remember
at
it
the
like
top.
it like shook everybody to the core where it almost, and veterans that are working on the show like, oh no, I forgot
Yeah.
that people can be like this.
Were you guys protective of like the environment? Like if you started to sense that was happening, were you like, no, we got to shut this down because we have a
I
good
mean,
thing?
Jim was.
Yeah.
We didn't even have to be because it would already happen.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like it starts at the top where like if you see the way Jim is acting, somebody else can't come and be like a prima donna when he doesn't care. Like
Yeah.
you go to like LA and shit, and people will fight over whose camper is parked
That's
closer
right.
to the set. Where they're like, Jim would be like, yo, like I have a thing about shitting in public, and Jim would be like, come shit in my camper, like, you know what I mean?
That
where
rules.
where he's just like whatever he
That says a
feels.
lot about
That
him.
rules that you did that.
I've said
by
that
the
to a
way.
lot of
That's
women on
awesome.
set.
Yeah.
Come shit in my camper. You
Yeah.
don't have no, you don't understand what I mean by camper.
And it was also weird sometimes when somebody would come on and be like excited to be on the show. Because we were like, you're on day 900 of working with the same people, you're showing up to the same spot, and you're just like, yeah, we're doing our thing. And then somebody would come on and be like, oh my god, like he's wearing the robe and what? And you're like, what? Like you don't realize that like, oh yeah, this is fucking
Or
iconic
there
to
was
people.
somebody that came on once and like was supposed to have a part for a while and was not professional, did not know their lines, was not bringing it. And David was like, oh, recast. We'll reshoot, recast.
They just recasted them right there.
Yep.
That's humiliating, especially on a show like that.
Yeah, and this was an established person. Yeah.
Yeah, and he probably told I'm
going
to be on Sopranos. I
got an arc.
Yeah.
You guys shot the pilot. Didn't you shoot that in 97 or 98? Like, wasn't it a couple of years before it?
A full year between the pilot and filming the second episode.
Did you know it was going to happen, or were you like, we have no idea if we're getting picked up or not?
I feel like I remember we shot the pilot in the summer, like July, August. I remember going to a screening in LA for it in November, and maybe around like January, February-ish, we heard we were going to be picked up. I mean, HBO was like a new network per se, like as far as original programming, because it used to be the movie channel. So, because I remember telling people I'm going to be on a show on HBO, and they were like, the movie channel? And I'm like, yeah. Because what did they have at that point?
Sex
like
and the City,
Arliss,
right?
Yeah,
Dream On was like a show.
Larry Sanders.
Larry
Sanders.
Sanders
Fucking
was
shit.
such a good show.
So good.
But
it
Sopranos
wasn't like
that was the first
Like drama.
and
like
the first
they had,
one
like,
that
these
people were like, this is the spot to go for original shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you had HBO, you loved the Larry Sanders show, but you weren't like, oh, I'm getting HBO because the Larry Sanders show is on it. You know, where I think Sex and the City and Sopranos definitely were like, oh, I have to get HBO now.
It's
also
another one of
gotta
those
be-
shows, by the way, that like you can go back and watch that anytime. That show holds up so well.
Sopranos?
Larry Sanders.
Oh,
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
It's also got to be nice to have such faith in the material. Like when you go on, if you go on a set now and do something, I'm sure it's good, but like some of the material is like, ugh, like when you've been on a masterpiece, to go from there to something else has got to be difficult to just respect what they're asking you to say.
Yeah, I'm sure that's like a lot of what you were talking about that you felt, Rob, of like going to something else, because it was just all there. And it's just, it was lightning in a bottle. I mean, it's like we were all perfect for the roles that we were playing at that time in our lives. The synergy, like the chemistry, the respect. I think just like all of it it just was one of those special moments in time.
So I had been auditioning for like 6 years, getting like commercials, and I did a couple of things. I did like SNL and like this just random shit. And then I remember like my manager being like, you got a TV show. Like this is fucking, you got a TV show. And I remember telling my family, and I was like, oh my God, this is it. Like this is the thing. We're getting out. And then when we were recording the pilot, I said that to Tony Sirico. I'm like, dude, my family's pumped. We're all getting fucking cars, and we're getting. And Tony Sirico was like, Tony Sirico was like, you know how many of these we do? He goes, you're lucky if we ever see each other again. And I was like, it was like a punch to the. I was like, oh no. I was like, we all thought. So then I have to go back to my family as a 12-year-old and be like, yeah, this isn't it. Like they do these things all the time. You know what I mean? And it was like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, we didn't know. We thought you were just now like, we thought you get a TV show and that's it.
That's it.
You know?